Happy Thursday evening, folks. Scotty Roberts here. We're live tonight. Good to have you here. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for being here on the show. We're not on Odyssey Radio tonight because I'm doing a live show here instead. And Odyssey Radio, you can still go over and hear a rerun, I think, of last night or the other night's show over at odysy1.com. to listen to a rerun of tonight's show, a rerun of some other night's show, not tonight's show, because this is live. We're about 30 seconds delayed. So if you're over there in the chat room right here on the YouTube channel, that's youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. You're going to see the live chat room. And, you know, since this isn't broadcasting anywhere else except here, you're probably all here already hearing this. So, this show is live. Again, about a 30-second delay from what I say until it gets to you. So I want to welcome to the show tonight. As many of you have seen already, about 30 seconds, Doug. How irresponsible. That lets me edit you out if you say naughty words or something. But I don't pay that close attention when I'm talking. So you notice I type almost not at all when I'm talking live. When you see me typing a lot and talking in the chat room, that's because I'm not talking, I'm typing. So that's when you know I'm pre-recorded. And so, hey, Audrey, good to see you. I saw her. Scotty, stand out with exclamation points. Roger Rabbit, good to see you. And Kelly Bolt, good to see you as well. Master Finn, glad you're here, taking the ship out. Take her out, Master Finn. Set sail, drop the mainsail. And you lubbers, swab the deck. Arr. And so, good to see you, Master Finn. Leslie Holker, good to see you. Fantastic, nice to see you. Yeah, look at all the green in here. I think the green is your... why am I blanking on the word for that? You're not emoticon. It's your little symbol that you're a member. And so thank all of you for being members. Tonight is the first night of having launched the long sought after, long awaited for, highly touted, much praised memberships that are coming. So those of you who've signed up, I can't tell what level everybody is at yet, but those of you who signed up, be prepared for some really cool stuff in the coming week or so. You're going to start seeing new videos, extra videos that most people don't get to see. Everybody is still going to be able to come here and see the daily show for free. There is no charge for that. You don't even have to be a member to do that. That is open to the public from Monday through Friday, the 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. That show's open to everybody. But those of you who have signed up for memberships, and remember, these are monthly recurring fees that you'll get off the memberships. If you've signed up, you're going to get all the good stuff that's going to start rolling in. And we'll be starting to do some extra videos here pretty quick. I think Rainey and I are going to go do a little ghost investigating, perhaps even this weekend. And we'll let you know if that doesn't happen this weekend, it might be the next weekend, something before Christmas time. And so you're going to start seeing some extra videos. But if you're not signed up for one of the two levels that offers the extra videos, you won't get to see them. But if you're just a basic member, thank you still. You get the little emoticon by your name or the little label badge. That's what it's called, the badge of honor for being part of it. And then the salute. Badge of honor. And I thank you for that too, because everything coming in helps us keep this thing going, and we appreciate that. So thanks for all those memberships. I love seeing that field of green over there on the right, which is where my chat room is. So everybody, Doug Stack, hello, good to see you. And where did I leave off? We got Steve Clark. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. And Siani Reese, nice to see you here tonight. Audrey, I said hi to, but I'll say hi again. And Leslie. Let's see, who else we got? Did I miss anybody slipping in under the wire here? at the last minute before we rolled. And no, I think I got you all. How about that? Until more people come in, we'll say hello. There's more people watching than I called out, I think. So, well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate that you would take your time to spend it with me. So thanks. And Audrey, you got me looking at the camera window on my screen now. Ever since you said my hair is glowing, it's this light up here. There, see? There's my real hair. Now it's glowing. It's a theatrical thing. It's all light and angle. So it's always good to see you, Scotty. Doug Stack says, thank you. Doug Stack, who hates black and white. How do you watch classic movies, Doug? I certainly hope you don't watch them colorized. That's horrible. Everybody, what's your favorite classic movie? Mine is, it's obvious, but it's there. It's Casablanca. It's one of my favorite old black and white, my old movies. Smoke and Mirrors, says Leslie. That's right. So, classic Married with Children. Nice, Doug. And let's see, I just watched Gaslight today. Leslie, great movie. Ingrid Bergman and Philip March? No. Who was it? Wasn't it the same guy who was in Frederick March? No. Same guy who was in Casablanca as the chief of police. Am I correct on that? Or am I blanking on that? So Charles Boyer, not the same guy. Charles Boyer. And Wuthering Heights is great. I love Wuthering Heights. Do you know that there was an old story of Samuel Goldwyn, who, I believe it was Goldwyn, who was the studio owner, the boss, back in the day when Wuthering Heights was made with Laurence Olivier and that cast. Same Merle Oberon, was she in that? And then there was the one who played in, I thought in Gone with the Wind. But that movie, he used to sit, he would have that movie loaded up. And many times during the day or at night, he would go to the in-house theater at the studio, and he would watch that movie, and he would listen to the music, and he would cry through that whole movie over and over again over the years after it was made. So David Niven was there. And so a really neat movie if you haven't seen it, folks. It's a great I used to like AMC, American Movie Classics. Are you all old enough back when, well, I know some of you are, back in the 80s when they came out with American Movie Classics on cable television? And it was exactly that. It was just old classic movies. And they were very much against colorization. So you didn't see the old classic movies reworked or remastered in color washes for everything. And they were very much purists. How Green Was My Valley was a great movie. And of course, there were old color movies too, and they showed those as well. Like The Quiet Man with John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara. Fantastic movie. By the way, The Quiet Man, everybody likes to watch that around St. Patrick's Day because it takes place in Ireland. And that book that was based on is a book really only about 1/4 of an inch thick. It's an older novella. And of course, they based the movie off of the book. But Sean Thornton, the John Wayne character, wasn't the main character in that story. He was one of the subsequent characters, or the incidental characters. But the story was more about the birth and the birth pains and the trauma of the early Irish Republican Army, which your IRA. And so it was a very good book. You should, if you haven't read it, you could probably read it in a day, when you have a day to read, because it's a tiny little book. So very good movie. Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn movies are fantastic. They're phenomenal. I love the wittiness in, was it, boy, it was Cary Grant, not Jane Wyman. I cannot think of her name. They were newspaper writers. And they had this quick, fast, witty repartee through the whole movie. The writers had to have been going a mile a minute when they were writing that movie. It was fantastic. I didn't think of what it was. You know, another old favorite of mine, Adam's Rib, with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn playing husband and wife that are lawyers, and they were ended up on opposite sides of one case. That was a very good movie. His Girl Friday, good movie. No, it wasn't Doris Day. I can't think of her. I see her face in my mind. She's got a look of like Mommy Dearest. Who was that? The actress. When she was a little younger, but it's not her. It's got the hair. I remember that. His Girl Friday. Yeah, good movie. And there you go. Yeah, exactly, Audrey. That's what we used to call Audrey, our Girl Friday. And so I love old movies. I love old black and white films. I like color films too, but I like a good black and white film. And there is, I got to tell you, you might, well, maybe for me, you know what I'm like. I cry when I think about crying. I watch Casablanca, and there are parts of that movie that make me cry. Still, after all the decades I have watched that movie. And go look up, if you go to YouTube and you look up the music for Wuthering Heights, the Laurence Olivier version, the old version of that, and just listen to the music. I think it's Kathy's Theme, it's called, or something like that. Beautiful, beautiful piece of music. Doug Stack, Casablanca is well worth watching. It's a movie that they were filming it and they hadn't even finished writing it. They were writing it as they were going. And some of the lines, I remember back when I was married to my ex-wife, and we're talking about way back in the 80s. This is back when you could rent VHS tapes. And I rented Casablanca because we were going to have a movie night at the in-laws with all the siblings of my wife and their wives. And we all sat around doing popcorn, watching movies. It might have been a New Year's Eve thing. I don't know what. But I brought in Casablanca. And I remember one of my sister-in-laws, she was watching this. She kind of kept chuckling through the movie. And I said, what do you find funny here? She goes, oh, all the old lines they're using in this movie. And I said, Nancy, I said, do you realize that this is where those old lines originated? This is where they came from. Lines like, here's looking at you, kid. She laughed at that. Or, you know, play it, Sam. You can play it for her. You can play it for me. She laughed. She laughed at some of the other lines in there because they were all one-liners that originated in that movie, but she'd heard them a million times and never knew it came from the movie Casablanca. So we had a great time watching that. Progenitor. Yes. Are you talking about the progenitor of those lines? Yeah, that was that movie, if that's what you're talking about. Double Indemnity with Fred MacMurray. My Three Sons. I grew up watching My Three Sons as a kid with Fred MacMurray as the dad. Barbara Stanwyck. Yep, great movies. I absolutely loved Errol Flynn movies. Not that you can tell by any of that stuff up on my wall. I loved his films. Now, Errol Flynn, was he a fantastic actor? Not really. It's like Peter O'Toole. Do you remember him? What a name, Peter O'Toole. He was in a movie called My Favorite Year I think it was made in the 80s. And he played an aging movie star that was like an Errol Flynn character. Because they showed all these movies he was making. It was a comedy movie. And he's aging and he's, not what he used to be and can't get the work like he used to. But he was the old swashbuckler. He played all the swashbuckling pirate roles and the Robin Hood roles and stuff like that. And there was one scene in the movie, I don't remember the interchange, but the famous line out of that movie, he yells in exasperation. He says, I am not an actor. I'm a movie star. And so I think that's a lot of what Errol Flynn was. He was a movie star. Remember the old the old black and whites again. Errol Flynn. And now I'm going to ask you a question. Don't look it up. If you know this, answer in the chat room. There was a Western series that Errol Flynn did with Ronald Reagan, who went on to become president several decades later. It was called Santa Fe Trail. And who did those two guys play in those movies? Especially, think of Errol Flynn. Who do you think Errol Flynn played? Does anybody know the answer to that? It struck me as kind of funny when I first saw that. He doesn't really look like him, although they made his hair look like him and his facial hair and stuff like that. Doug Stack, A Little House on the Prairie. Sorry, Doug, that was not a black and white television show. James Carney, James Cagney. Hey, Amanda, how you doing? So do you know who, nope, not Butch Cassidy. He actually played George Armstrong Custer. Errol Flynn played Custer in those early movies, and it was Custer's early career. And so he was a swashbuckler, and swashbuckling suave hero type. And they gave him the long locks, and I think they tried to make it look a little blonder than it was. And of course, the Errol Flynn facial hair. And and I can't remember, who did Ronald Reagan play? It was another famous character of the day. Look that one up because I can't remember. Ronald Reagan was in that movie, and they were friends in that movie and compatriots. And Annie, Get Your Gun. Mom loved that. What was a fun movie? My ex-wife loved this movie. It was Doris Day in the role that kind of really sticks with her when you think about her, Calamity Jane. Totally farcical, historical musical of Calamity Jane and Deadwood City. Things like that. It was a great movie. Yeah, Donald Trump. Nice. Yeah, pretty much. Or Donald Trump's playing Ronald Reagan. I will say this about Donald Trump. As much as I like Trump, I preferred Ronald Reagan as a president. I loved Ronald Reagan. And what a great president. Yeah, take me back to the Black Hills. The Black Hills of Dakota. That's the one, Leslie. And your mom, Amanda, says, made us watch the oldest and most Help Me Now movies. So, yeah, Reagan was my hero, too. Yeah, I cried when he died. And, yeah, that was pretty moving times. Yeah, you can't see, Reagan wasn't Custer. Reagan was, go ahead and look it up. Somebody Google that. I just want to see who he played in Santa Fe Trail. Who was Ronald Reagan's character in Santa Fe Trail? Ronald Reagan wasn't Custer, Audrey. He might have been Jeb Stuart. Flynn was, I'm gonna look it up myself. Santa Fe Trail. Boom. Let's see who was in this. The movie. Oh, now I'm getting How to Visit the Santa Fe Trail. Santa Fe Trail movie. We're gonna get something here. We had in there, you had Errol. Oh, you're right. Well, that's what it says on the site here. That Errol Flynn played Jeb Stuart, but it doesn't show Ronald Reagan in here at all. It does have Alan Hale Sr. Now, did you know Alan Hale Sr.? You know who his very famous son was? Alan Hale Sr. was in a lot of Errol Flynn movies. He played Little John in Robin Hood, next to Errol Flynn's Robin Hood. I think he was in Seahawks. He was in several movies. Do you know who Alan Hale's? No, it wasn't Custer, Matt Finn. Ronald Reagan was Custer. That doesn't sound right. And Flynn was Stewart. That just doesn't sound right. Not the way I remembered it. Oh well, I'm wrong. Look up a clip and see on YouTube and see. Well, Yeah, and if Ronald Reagan was cussing, remember Ronald Reagan was a pretty good-looking leading man back in his day. But yeah, the skipper. That's right, Scott Allen. Alan Hale's famous son, Alan Hale Sr.'s famous son, Alan Hale Jr. He played the skipper on Gilligan's Island, and that was his claim to fame. Yeah, Reagan was a handsome dude back in those days. And so I must have been wrong all these years. I'm thinking I haven't seen Santa Fe Trail in probably 30 years, but I'm thinking it was Custer was played by uh, um, Errol Flynn. I'm I'm going to check one other thing here. I'm going to put Errol Flynn as Custer. Let's see if that comes up. They died with their boots on. Oh, see, I'm remembering it from that movie. They died with their boots on. Errol Flynn played George Armstrong Custer. That's probably where I'm remembering that from. You can go take a look at some of the movie posters and the stills. Just do a Google search for They Died with Their Boots On, Errol Flynn. It was a 1941 movie. But I thought that he had reprised his role, and Olivia de Havilland was in that too. She played Maid Marian to his Robin Hood almost 10 years earlier than that. But he was still in his prime in this movie. And I see pictures of Errol Flynn in the buckskin coat and his hair flown around and dead men lying on the field all around him, and he's got a sword drawn. So it obviously took it all the way up to The Last Stand. And of course, this is the Custer's last stand when it was considered to be a very heroic thing. And Barbie D, welcome. And thank you, Barbie D. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. She just became a member, an Intrepid Extreme Heads member. Thank you very much. And look at all the green. For those of you looking at the chat room, all the green, those are all the people who have signed up for memberships today. So I want to thank you all for doing that. And hopefully hit you one by one as we did it. And so if you haven't signed up and you'd like to, you can't find it here on this video. It's not showing the join button here as far as I know, unless they've amended it by now. It will eventually. It should be on this video, come to think of it. There should be a join button down below the window. And you can hit that, or you can go out to my main page, Mr. Scotty Roberts, and hit the join button. And thank you very much. And be looking forward to all the cool junk you're going to get for being a member of this program. And I appreciate it. So there, that's my, you can click on my name under the video, and then join came up. There you go. Thanks, Amanda B. And Doug, I don't ignore you. I just don't. I'm talking. Remember, I'm talking now. so I don't get to read when I'm talking as much. See, right now I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. I'm reading Audrey's post about watching the official trailer for Santa Fe Trail. Reagan is definitely Custer. Okay, well, that's cool. Interesting casting there. Let's see. I know you're kidding. And Doug. So Barry, welcome. Good to have you. Today, I don't want to pass up even though it's 24 minutes into the show, I don't want to pass up our Spark Courage, these 50 ways to be bold. I like these. This has done a lot for me. I read these, and I haven't, I'm going to tell you something, and maybe it's not that hard to believe. These are easy topics, but I don't go and study up on these topics so I can speak about it. It's an exercise for me to come on the radio live or pre-record and take the topic and speak about it off the top of my head extemporaneously. And I could do something. I could write a little book on, I wouldn't call it Spark Courage because it's already been taken. The title's already taken. But I could write something like that, a little book like that that's got junk and sayings. And so you open up this box, and of course it looks like it's a book of matches, for those of you who haven't seen this yet. And each one of these has something written on them. And it's kind of and so I'm going to dig one out right now. I'm going to dig kind of deep because I did kind of mix them up the other day and see if we get if we get a used one, we'll put it back. We've only done about 5 of these so far. Okay. Here you go. Here's today's. See if you can read that. When you see someone in need, I can't read backwards. Be the first person to step in and help. All right. This is spark courage. This is about being bold. Many times we see people that are in need and we don't step up. We're afraid to approach them. Or there was one person, we're talking way back 35 years ago, somebody I drove past on my way to work. This big old car, and there was a kind of a cute young woman. She looked Indian descent, sitting behind the wheel, and she looked like she was in trouble. And I got out and I approached her car, and she was naked. So I got back in the car. We didn't have cell phones back then, so I drove back to the office and I called it in. And I said, I think there's somebody in distress. And she didn't talk to me. She had, saliva and tears and everything, and she was naked, sitting in a stalled car on the side of the highway. So it took me 2 minutes to get back to my office, and I called. But sometimes I don't approach people, and I don't recommend that everybody approach people. But when you see someone in need, be the first person to step in and help. Why is this a topic of courage or being bold? Because I think it's a good way to show the boldness of what we say we believe, putting feet and action to our words and our ideas or ideals. I used to tell the kids in my youth group, and I think of something very specifically. I used to tell them, I did a whole series for them, and this was something that stuck with me over the years on, and this was church work, it was ministry work, but how to be a leader. And it wasn't a leadership course. It was a servant. I'm sorry, not servant. It was a servant. It wasn't a leader was in my mind. So cancel out the leadership thing. Servant. How to be a servant. Improving your serve. I called it. And I kind of took the title from if you know who Chuck Swindoll is, he was a great radio teacher and preacher. Not an evangelist type. Probably one of the most men of integrity and character that was out there, and it was just recordings of his teaching, his church, and he was an amazing teacher. And so improving your serve, and I grabbed that title and I used it with the kids in my youth group, and I said, what do you do? I said, Christianity and being a Christian, I told them, I said, is one thing. I said, living life as if you are a servant, a Christian who is a servant to humanity. I said, that's a totally different thing. And I said, we have in church work, we had this thing where we would turn our back on, you don't give money to feed the children and stuff like that. You have to preach the gospel to them. Because we'd say, what good is it to fill their bellies and see them screaming into hell? That was kind of the way that was taught to us back then. And I said, I disagree with that. When I was a youth pastor, I said, if I want to minister to people, if I want them to be attracted to what I believe, if I want them to be attracted to Christ the way I said that I was a Christian, I said, probably the best way to do that is to model it. And I said, remember, Jesus fed the 5,000. Remember, Jesus healed the sick. Jesus gave of himself to people. Yes, he had a deeper message. He came presenting the kingdom and salvation, and he died for the sins of mankind and was resurrected and was the atonement and the resurrection and all of that stuff. But I said, if you take that part of it out of there and say, how can you further the gospel of Christ, the one you say you're following, while not modeling what he would have done to help others? And I said, so improving your being a servant to other people, I said, is very important. And I remember I was driving some kids home. We had every Friday night, we'd have a youth activity. at the church. They would come and join. We'd do things like we had a gymnasium at our church. It was either playing floor hockey or doing stuff at the church, or we'd go out and do various kinds of activities. We'd do campouts. We'd do, and it was every Friday night throughout the whole year, and without missing a beat. And so I was driving some of the guys home from an activity one night, and there was a young woman sitting on the side of the road, much like the first woman I told you about. She was crying. It was cold outside. She's sitting on the curb. I remember seeing her knees and blue jeans and big, almost bell-bottomy flared blue jeans, early 80s. We're talking like 1980, 81. And these guys that were in my car, these teenagers, I said, what do you think we ought to do, guys? So you see that woman sitting on the side? She looks very troubled. And I wasn't trying to manufacture something. She looked like a mess. And it turns out she was either drunk or she was high or something. But she was sitting on the side of the road and she was shaking. She was shivering. It was so cold. She didn't have a coat on. And so we got out of the car and I took my big coat off and I threw it over her shoulders. And I told these 2 or 3 guys that were with me that I was going to drive home from the activity. And I said, you know how we've been talking about being a servant? I said, this is what you can do. This is what you can do to help somebody. Extend yourself out to somebody. Put yourself at risk. And I told these kids something I'm going to tell you now. Serving other people or putting other people. Now I put this away and now I'd have to dig for it to find it now. I'm trying to see so I could repeat what it said. But putting yourself out there for somebody else, serving somebody else. I told these kids in my group, and this is what I'll repeat now, is that serving sometimes isn't what people always see you do. So I told these guys that night. I said, you don't want to be a servant to other people or give of yourself to other people or help other people in need so somebody sees you doing it. Oh, yeah, I gave her $200 because I knew she needed it, and yeah, look at me. And, there are people who do it for that reason. They want to be seen. How many things have you done to serve other people or help other people that nobody sees, nobody knows? So I told these kids, I said, sometimes being a servant to others, giving of yourself to others means getting your fingernails dirty and nobody else sees it. And so this is what I would encourage you guys to do. Encourage us all to do is go out there, and you don't have to go looking for things. You know what? Things will fall in your lap. If you put your energy out there, if you manifest saying, I'm here to help others, it's going to come to you. And you're going to know it when it hits you. And there's going to be no question. And then step out and do it and help others. So there you go. And you know what? I've had people help me. I've been in situations where I've been surprised by people unexpectedly. And I had somebody once that I wasn't out there preaching that I was in a bad shape or doing poorly financially or anything. I had somebody, I met him at a certain event, and it was a ghost hunters event, as a matter of fact. And he handed me an envelope. And in that envelope, he says, there's a little something in there for you. Now, I'd done a little bit of work for him, but, it wasn't for that. And he handed me this envelope. I opened it up. There's $2,500 of cash in the envelope. And he says, that's for you. And I couldn't believe it. Sometimes people do that kind of, now that's money. But do people come and mow your grass? Do you mow the old guy's grass down the street? Do you blow out his driveway if you're in snow? I don't know this for anything, but Leslie, over here in our chat room, I would be willing to bet my left, I was going to say testicle, let's be clean, and say my left ear, my left leg, that Andy is the kind of person that would go out and blow out somebody's driveway if they needed it. He just seems that you two seem that way. You strike me as people who put yourselves out for other people. And I admire that in you. And so do you know people like that? Do you know people that you could be of help to? Put yourself out and do it. Nothing wrong with that at all. Doesn't take politics. It doesn't take being in the same political party, for certain. It doesn't take anything except having a willing heart to help somebody else out. And paying it forward, I saw Doug say. Yeah, some people are kind for self-gratification. Yeah, you're right. Leslie says, yes, Andy would. It's the way we were raised. Thank you. You're welcome. And you know, that's the way I was raised too. I got to be honest, though. There are days where I'm like, I am not going to help anybody. I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. And you know, that's okay too. It's not like this is your incumbent upon you to fulfill everything that comes across your path, but keep your eyes open for the things that do come across your path, because those might be things you're being asked to do. And it's like that song. Oh, I shouldn't even bring this up, because it moves me. There are things I talk about sometimes. Just talking about them raises the emotions. But there was that song of, and I don't know who sang it, a country western guy. I can't remember who did it. I knew at one point, and I've forgotten. But that song that says, I believe there are angels around us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. It says, they come to you and me in our darkest hours to show us how to live, to show us how to give. And I don't remember how the chorus closes out. And I remember that song came, Alabama, that's it. That song, the first time I heard that was, now I know they're kind of talking about celestial angels. God has his angels to protect us and so on. But I think they are also, when you watch, there's a video of that and it shows people, humans, that help other people. And I think it's meant to cross that boundary and go over into other people helping other people. And I remember the story, and I may have told this on here. If I did, it was a long time ago. But my mother was, and I think you remember this, she was shot in the chest by her estranged husband. And this was back in 1999. I was a creative director at an ad shop, and I got a call one day from the hospital that my mom had been shot the night before. Now, my mom ran a karaoke business where she went to different pubs and places and sent other people out with her equipment. And she had quite a business going in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And she had been estranged from her husband. And we didn't know it at the time. He was a bad guy. I thought he was rough around the edges, but they broke up. And she came home one night from her karaoke show, walking in the door at about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And she pulled into the garage, 2-car garage. And there was one of her other cars was already in there. She pulled her van in with all her equipment. And she got out. She had her purse hanging over her shoulder and a little bag. She had stopped and bought some chips or something at the store. And she's walking into the house, and there's one step up from the garage into the kitchen. She opens the door, and here is LaDucer was his last name. He's standing at the door, and he's got a gun in one hand and a pillow in the other hand. Now, there's intent for you. And they said afterwards, the FBI said there was a chair sitting by the stove by the door there with about 30 cigarette butts. He'd been sitting there smoking all night waiting for her to get home. And he had a very small caliber gun. And it looked like it was a homemade gun almost. And she came up to the door. He opened the door, put the pillow up, and shot her. She didn't even realize at first she'd been shot. And what we found was it entered her chest, went through her lung, and it went into the purse hanging over her shoulder. And the bullet, we found the bullet like a week later, lodged in her wallet with all her credit cards. Because she went to the hospital that night, obviously, and hadn't looked at any of her stuff. She opened up her wallet, and here was this bullet. And so we called the police and gave it to them. But he immediately went on the lam. And he was missing they were looking for him for 10 months. And he had sent death threats to her. He sent death threats to me and my family. This is maybe where I told the story. I was sitting when we had the ranch, my ex-wife and I, and the same ranch that Rainey and I had. And I remember sitting up out there in the country with a shotgun across my lap and a loaded revolver Rainey had upstairs. And, or not Rainey, Annette, my ex-wife. And the little kids up there, my twin daughters and my son. My son wasn't born yet. But he never did show up at my house. But the reason I did that was because the neighbors, the day after the shooting, said, we saw somebody come in, drove into your drive in your barnyard in a red Ford Probe. And that was my mom's car. He ended up taking that car. And a car not to be seen in. He ditched it pretty quick. But to say this, my mom would tell this story where he shot her and then tried to cock the gun or something to shoot her again, and it misfired, and she ran around the red Ford Probe in the garage, and she went the other way from him, and she ended up around the van and got it back into the van and locked it. And she still had her keys, thank goodness. And he's banging on the window with this gun, trying to break the glass. She turns on the engine, throws it into reverse, smashes through the garage door and out onto the street, and drove immediately to the police station, where she collapsed in the lobby. And she says, I think I've been shot. And then, of course, she went to Regions Hospital from there. Those of you from around here know that. And so the reason I tell that story is she said she doesn't remember a single thing from running around the car and getting in. And the next thing she remembers, she was at the police station. Now, that can be attributed to shock, to panic, to all the things going on. She doesn't remember putting in the keys and starting the car. She doesn't remember throwing it into reverse or even going through the garage door. There's a busy street out in front of her house. There were no cars. Of course, it's the middle of the night. And she drives to the police station. And so she had all her karaoke people threw her a big a tribute, but a fundraiser to help her raise funds at the hospital and pay some of these bills and stuff, because she was self-employed. I don't think she had insurance. And this is 99 too, way back. And so one of the guys would come up, and I would request him to sing this song every time I happened to see him at one of her shows throughout the years. And he sang that Alabama song because my mom said, I believe that there was an angel that protected me that night. Now, there's no real biblical, if you will, solid foundation for there being guardian angels, at least by that name. Although it does say that God gives his angels charge over us. And so, meaning protective service. And so she doesn't remember that, but he would sing that song. And I found that that's one of those songs I can't sing. I'll start to sing it. If I hear it by any chance, I think the last time I've even heard it on the radio had to be years ago. It's an old song. But I heard it, and anytime I hear that, that'll grip my emotions. So anyway, long story about something I didn't really plan to talk about. And I'm not sure why I got there, other than to say sometimes we can be somebody else's angel figuratively, metaphorically speaking, when we put ourselves out to help them when they are in need. Like that chorus said, I believe there's angels around us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hour to show us how to live, to teach us how to give. Something about the light of the world. And so it's a good story. It's a nice little ballad song. Let's see, Scotty, it's the name of the song. Yeah, there are angels among us. I think it's called Angels Among Us. Those 3 words, if I'm not mistaken. Done by Alabama. But I'm sure there's a million covers of it out there too on the internet. So that's a scary story. And by the way, just to wrap up that story, I was working with the FBI Fugitive Task Force, trying to find him. My friend John Jordan and I put up a website, citizenobserver.com, primarily to help find him, put up his mugshots, his record, and everything like that. His brother and his family were all on my case because we were revealing his private information. I said, basically told him, fuck off. I said, I'm doing this because it needs to be done. And then we offered to put the 10 most wanted of every police station, city, precinct on that site for free. They had to send us the information and a mugshot, and we'd throw it up there. And so we put that up, and that site was actually bought off by somebody a couple of years later that paid us for it, which is kind of cool. But at this time, too, while he was on the lam during that 10 months, about 6 months in, remember the show America's Most Wanted? They came in and they filmed an episode about my mom and this guy. His name was Harvey Leducer. And they filmed all about this because what we found out after the shooting, while he was on the lam, he had a record. He had tried 2 other times. He had tried to commit murder. He had slit somebody's throat once, did prison time for 6 years, and he had pipe bombed a young woman that rejected him back in the late 70s. And he pipe bombed her. He put a pipe bomb under her car seat and blew her up. And during the time we were looking for him, that woman's daughter called me. And her mom lived through it. She said, do you know my mom had 20, up to that point, 20 or 21 reconstructive surgeries since 1978 when he bombed her. And this was in 2000 by the time I've gotten her call. And so that's the kind of person he was. And so that's why they're looking for him. I remember it was the FBI that told me, if he comes to your door out at your ranch, he said, no conversation, don't ask any questions, don't shoot to wing him or injure him. That's where they told me, dot your I. They said 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. And they said, just make sure we find a weapon in his hand. That's what I was told. Now, I'm not trying to impugn the FBI. I don't have to name names here. So that's the stuff that was going on at that time. And that reminded me, that song always reminds me of that. And I was reminded of that song talking about serving other people, being a servant to others. So let's move on from that. I wanted to get into something much lighter. And, we've only got about 12 minutes of the show left, but I'm still going to hit this a little bit. I'll bet you do, Audrey. I know some of the things you've gone through. Also includes a pipe bomb. Wow. Stalking. And by the way, the end of this story, Leducer, he was supposed to be life in prison, but then they ended the 3 strikes thing. And so he got out of prison about 5 years ago after doing 13 years. Let's see. He went into prison in 2001. And he served 13 years, which would have made it 2014. Between 2014 and 15, he got out of prison. Well, he died. Boo-hoo. He died. He passed away a few years ago. 2 years ago, I think. So he is no longer with us. And, you want to hear something in kind of an upshot here? I don't know if it's related or not. I was doing my genealogical research Rainey and I were both doing that. And I've talked about here. I have Welsh Scott. It's not Scotch. I don't know why I even said that. Probably because I was thinking I don't use the word Scotch. It's a derogatory. I'm Welsh Scott. And I was digging back into the past, and I've traced my Welsh ancestry back to the early 1600s in Wales. Well, I found through marriages, I started tracing my maternal side. And lo and behold, in my mother's family line, back about 4 generations, there's a Ledoucer. French Canadian. Don't know a thing about him. Don't know. And it was the woman was the Ledoucer, the mother. And so my great grandmother of my mom's was a Ledoucer. So that was very interesting. I've never heard that name very much. I haven't heard that name very much. So maybe part of his family tree sprung out of our family tree as well. So, but moving off of that topic, I have another topic. It's a lot more lighthearted. And I was planning on maybe spending a bulk of the show on this. Now here we are with 10 minutes of the show left. But let's see where we get. Did you see the article today about the former Israeli space security chief that says extraterrestrials exist and Donald Trump knows about it? And the subtitle is "There's a galactic federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we'll understand what space and spaceships are," Chaim Eshed said. Now, he was an Israeli space security chief. There is a hell of a lot of credibility to this guy, to his position in Israel. And this is a story that was put out, it was released today. And this former Israeli space security chief has sent eyebrows shooting by saying that Earthlings have been in contact with extraterrestrials from a galactic federation. Audrey, you and I have talked about this before. We talked about this on Rocky's show way back and joked about it a couple of times. Is there a galactic federation out there? Now, try to get your mind out of storybook with this. Think of what the Native Americans who were here and had never seen Europeans before, what they thought when they saw the tall ships coming in. Some said they couldn't see the ships. It was because their mind could not comprehend it. That was some of the stories that went along with that. But when you think about that for a second, how impossible is it that there might be aliens that are already part of and we storybookize it because we've got science fiction, we've got Star Trek, the Federation and Starfleet and all of that. And but what if there is a confederation of planets that already exists out there? We just ain't there yet. We aren't the founders, which is where science fiction put us. But they've made first contact with us, but have not spread that to the general populace yet. Yet there are people out there, very credentialed, credible people who talk about this federation thing. Now, the unidentified flying objects have asked me not to publish that they're here. Humanity isn't ready yet. This is what Chaim Eshed said. He's the former head of Israel's Defense Ministry Space Directorate. And he told Israel's Yediat Aronot newspaper. That's what he told them. The interview in Hebrew ran on Friday of last week and gained traction after parts were published in English by the Jerusalem Post this last Tuesday. And a respected professor, a retired general, Eshed, said the aliens were equally curious about humanity and were seeking to understand the fabric of the universe. They weren't here to be benevolent to us and share their glorious stuff with us, or even their ability, their propulsion systems, how they travel here. But Eshed said cooperation agreements had been signed between species, including an underground base in the depths of Mars. And there are American astronauts and alien representatives there. There's an agreement between the US government and the aliens. They signed a contract with us to do experiments here, he said. Eshad added that President Donald Trump is aware of the extraterrestrials' existence and had been on the verge of revealing information, but was asked not to in order to prevent mass hysteria. What would happen to the president what do you think his career would be like? The president who announces this to the world, if it's a United States president that does it. So they've been waiting here until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand, in general, what space and spaceships are, Eshad said, referring to the Galactic Federation. The White House and Israeli officials did not immediately respond to the NBC's request for a comment. Sue Go, a spokesperson for the Pentagon, declined to comment at all. A spokesman for NASA said one of the agency's key goals was the search for life in the universe, but that it had yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life through NASA. Although we have yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life, NASA is exploring the solar system and beyond to help us answer fundamental questions, including whether we're alone in the universe, the spokesman said in the statement. Now, let me ask you, do you think if NASA discovered the fact that there was life out there in such a sophisticated manner as there to be a federation, do you think they'd tell us? Do you think they already know and they just aren't telling us? It's being covered up. And I'm not talking about this from some weird conspiratorial oddball point of view. I'm just saying we already know what it was like discovering life on Earth, discovering other continents on Earth. We know the age of exploration that we went through. We already know now, and we've talked about this before, that they've done the math through some of the deep space photography they've done. I told you about the Hubble infrared picture they took. If you took like the size of your pinky nail, your fingernail, and put it out at arm's length and looked at the sky, about that size up in the sky, that pinky nail size, they focused on that for 10 days and did infrared, and they found over 10,000 galaxies. Our solar system is in the Milky Way galaxy. They found over 10,000 galaxies in that little tiny space in the sky. Now imagine filling the whole sky with that. How many billions upon billions, exponential numbers of galaxies there are. And in all of that, how many of those house planets that are very similar to ours, that could sustain life, that are the right distance from a star, that orbit the right, and so on. And so, yeah, we need to be wary of the government disclosing crap. Project Bluebeam comes to mind. Yeah, sure. And that's the thing about government disclosure. I think there's a lot of people that have run into this. I knew somebody 15, 20 years ago who had experience with this. And I mentioned this story. She lived outside of Roswell, New Mexico. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Roswell came to mind because we're talking aliens. And outside of Albuquerque, she met a guy who said there was a base that ran dozens of stories deep into the ground, out in the desert. And that this was the base for all, and he said something like there were 200 plus alien species that are already here and have been here. And that it's all like headquartered there. Now you get a fanciful picture with like Men in Black. It'd be like that, only probably not as fanciful as that, as science fiction-y, storybooky. So it's very interesting if this could exist. There are people out there that know some of this stuff. And in May, Trump had said space is going to be the future, both in terms of defense and offense. We're now the leaders in space, as he was presented with the official flag of the newly created military branch, the Space Force. Now, Eshad oversaw the launch of numerous Israelite satellites into space, and he was only speaking out now because attitudes were changing and people seemed more receptive to the idea. He said, if I had come up with what I'm saying today 5 years ago, I would have been hospitalized, he told Yediot. Today, they're already talking differently. I have nothing to lose. I've received my degrees, my rewards. I am respected in universities abroad. And Eshed's comments immediately spawned jokes and theories online. At least a half a dozen accounts have been created on Twitter, claiming to be representatives to Earth from the Galactic Federation. Other users have asked for preferential treatment in meetings with the otherworldly group. I see no need for that. Unless you're going to make a lot of money off of doing something like that, what's the point? You're just mocking somebody else. Nick Pope, who used to investigate UFOs for the British Ministry of Defense, described Eshed's remarks as extraordinary. Either this is some sort of practical joke or publicity stunt to help sell his book, perhaps with something having been lost in translation, or someone in the know is breaking ranks, he said. So Pope said the UFO and conspiracy theory community was excited, but that questions remained, including whether or not Eshed was speaking from direct personal knowledge and experience, or whether he was repeating something that he'd been told. There's still missing pieces to the puzzle here, he said. So what do you think of all that? Technically, we're out of time. We can go a few minutes here. Well, again, I'm cutting into Jimmy Johnson's show, but you can do what you like. You can stick around. You can go over to Jimmy's show. You can put us both up on your screen, whatever you want to do. But just kind of wrap this particular thing up. Field guy said there's a recording from 1978. I think no one can explain. It's interesting. What prompted this, I was talking to my daughters. Rainey and I were in our own little worlds doing our own thing. I think Rainey was off shopping, and she was texting on Facebook. We had a group going, and my daughter saying, "Did you see that article about Eshed, the Israeli general who says there was a galactic empire?" And so we started talking about that. That made me think, I'm going to talk about that tonight. And we didn't get to it till the last 15 minutes. But this made me think about it. And I threw up a couple of posts to my daughters. If you haven't seen it yet, go look for, and I've talked about this before, it might have been on Rocky's show, but I've talked about Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, a few years ago, was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. And Jimmy Kimmel was talking to him about aliens and UFOs. And what do you know? Jimmy Kimmel said, the first question I'd ask when I was president, I'd come off of that swearing in inauguration. I'd go right to the desk in the Oval Office and pull out the files on UFOs. I'd say, bring me all the UFO shit. I need to know. Probably want to do the same thing. And it was Ben Hansen, who has been involved with some paranormal shows on TV. I've met Ben before. He was a forensic psychologist in his former career. And he watched the clip, a lengthy clip of Bill Clinton talking to Jimmy Kimmel. And he was talking about his body language and how it changed on certain things. Well worth looking up. Look up Bill Clinton, Jimmy Kimmel, UFOs, and Ben Hansen. Remember that name? Those four, I don't have the link here. Otherwise, I'd throw it up there. I could probably find it. Hold on a second. I know it's here because I was talking to my kids. But Amanda B., if you're still there, you probably know a hell of a lot about this stuff. Because Amanda B. is one of those people that sees a lot of stuff. Let's see here. I'm going to find this article so I can share it with you. Oh, I'm in the wrong page. Somebody else's thing popped up. Don't you hate that? You're talking and somebody else's thing pops up. Copy link address. Here we go. I'm going to paste this in the chat room window. Boom. And it comes with a Facebook link. I hate when they do that. Hold on. I hate when Facebook does that. If you grab a link that's been pasted into Facebook, they automatically have to put their link, so you got to run through their stuff to get there. So let me just open this up, and I'm going to recopy the link.
Hey guys, this is Ben Hansen.
If I can take it all. All right. Let's see. Share. There it is. Copy. All right. I'm going to put this in the chat room. You can go look this up if you haven't already found it yourselves. That's a great interview. interviewing a former president on this stuff. And you might want to go take a look at that. It's very interesting. And there was one other link that I had sent my girls, and I think you might be interested in seeing this. This is the link of President Reagan. And the 3 times that he mentioned UFOs and our ability to, what it would do to our world if we found out that there were actually UFOs. Go look at these clips. They're all 3 strung together at that link. You can see what Ronald Reagan said back in the 80s. I think he was a true believer. And it was either a favorite metaphor of his to use over and over again, or there was something to it. So go look those up. Maybe tomorrow on the show, we'll talk more about this. We'll talk about more of the stuff around this other than this guy's, the article of the interview with this former Israeli general. And we'll hit this more, maybe dig into it a little bit and find out what more. I'm going to dig in more, find out what is known about Galactic Federation from all different kinds of points of view and see what we come up with. So there you go. Hey, John Piper. Good to see you, brother. Facebook wiped my account. They must have found out about my being on the no-fly list. Oh, boy. Seriously? They wiped your account? That sucks big time. Sorry, John, to hear that. Well, everybody, we're at the end of the show, so I'm going to wrap this up. If I didn't get to say hi to you tonight or talk to you directly, it's only because I was talking so much, I didn't look much at the chat room. Yes, Amanda B is in Australia. There's a lot of crazy stuff down under. Oh, yes, I don't even know what the words are. I come from the land down under. And so she'd probably smack me if she heard me sing that. So she'd probably be like, don't sing that, crikey. So anyway, everybody, thank you for being here. Kelly, Audrey, Steve, Doug, Matt Finn, Leslie, Sean Stroik. Good to see you, brother. Thank you. And so Ryan Sprague talks about that. Micah Hanks. You know that Micah Hanks and I used to be partners in the Paradigm Symposium. It was actually he and I that founded the Paradigm Symposium. Micah Hanks, we used to do radio together quite a bit. And little known, he used to date my daughter, Abby. So there was a point where one of my closest friends, it was possible that he would have ended up being my son-in-law. But they ended up breaking up. This was years ago now. But so Micah Hanks and I go way back. He just messaged me the other day. Might have been around my birthday a couple of weeks ago. And said, hey, brother, we've got to catch up. Micah Hanks, Mouth of the South. So you can go look him up, Micah Hanks, and see his show if you haven't. He's been in radio for a long time, written a lot of books. Pretty cool guy. And that's all we got for tonight, guys. So as Steve Clark says, take care. Stay safe, healthy, wherever all my sisters and brothers may be tonight. Sending much love, peace of mind, and heart, and healing to all of you worldwide. Thank you, Steve. And by the way, to all my friends in Israel and all my Jewish friends here stateside, happy Hanukkah. That starts tonight. And we leave you with that. So we'll see you in 23 hours, give or take a few minutes, right back here for the show. Tomorrow's Friday. It'll be our last show of the week. And then we have Sunday coming up. And if you have not gotten yourself a membership, go over and join my channel. And you can get yourself a membership. There's 3 levels. And there's lots of special stuff you can get. You can read through the list of the perks if you become a member. And they're pretty easy prices. $2, $5, $15 for the Mega Grand Extravaganza membership. And you can read about what all of those are and what it gets you. And it's monthly recurring charges on all of those. So I want to thank all of you. If you look at the chat room, you see all the green in there. That is all the people who have signed up so far that are in the chat room, at least. And I want to thank you for being here. Michelle, Cannon Free, thanks for being here. I didn't see you earlier. So hi and bye. Guys, have a good night. And I will see you tomorrow.